The summer of 2008 was turning out to be one of the best times of my life. I had just finished 8th grade, and it felt like I was closing one chapter and opening another. Graduation was behind us, and I was buzzing with excitement about starting high school. But there was something even more thrilling on the horizon: our class trip to Six Flags Great America. Everyone in school was talking about it, and the anticipation was almost too much to handle. For weeks, I daydreamed about the roller coasters. Growing up, I had always been just a bit too short for the biggest rides. I remember standing next to the height markers, desperately hoping I had grown just enough to reach the line that said, "You must be this tall to ride." Every time, I would leave the park feeling a little disappointed while my friends bragged about their wild adventures. But this year was going to be different. I had finally hit that magic height requirement, which meant I could finally experience the park's wildest attractions. The thought of the rush, the wind blasting in my face, the heart-stopping drops, the crazy loops filled me with excitement. I had waited years for this moment, and now it was finally happening. As the date of the trip got closer, my friends and I could hardly contain our excitement. During lunch breaks, we mapped out the rides we wanted to hit first and argued over which one was the scariest. For me, the Raging Bull was the ultimate challenge. It was the tallest and fastest coaster in the park, and everyone said it was the ride to conquer if you were brave enough. The idea of hurtling down that 208-foot drop made my stomach flip, but I was ready to prove I could handle it. I remember one day in particular, sitting under the shade of the big oak tree in the schoolyard, my friend Mia said, "If you can survive the Raging Bull, you can survive anything." That made me laugh and filled me with determination. I didn't want to be the kid who was too scared to ride the biggest roller coaster. I wanted to be one of those brave kids whose screams echoed through the park. Finally, the day of the trip arrived, and I woke up before dawn, my heart racing with excitement. I could hardly eat breakfast. I was so nervous and pumped at the same time. The bus ride to the park was a blur of laughter and chatter. My best friend, Kevin, sat next to me, and we spent the whole ride strategizing about how to make the most of our day. We both agreed that as soon as we arrived, we'd split from the rest of the group and head straight for the big coasters. We were determined to conquer the rides and not waste time on smaller attractions. Today was all about pushing our limits and making memories we'd never forget. When we pulled into the parking lot, the sight of those towering roller coasters sent a rush of adrenaline through me. I couldn't believe we were finally here. The park was packed with families and friends, all excited for a day of fun. But all I could think about was getting to the front of the line for the Raging Bull. As we walked through the entrance gates, the sounds of the park surrounded us, screams of joy and thrill from the rides, upbeat music blaring from speakers, and the distant clattering of roller coaster tracks. The energy was electric, and I felt like I was in a dream. "Come on, let's go," Kevin shouted, grabbing my wrist and pulling me along. We wasted no time. The moment we stepped inside, we dashed toward the Raging Bull, weaving through the crowd. The lines were long, but I didn't mind. The anticipation only made it more exciting. We chatted about what the ride would be like, our imaginations running wild. I could almost feel the wind on my face and the rush of the ride already. When we finally made it to the front and hopped into the coaster car, my heart was racing like never before. The safety bar clicked into place, and I gripped it tightly. As we slowly climbed that first hill, I felt a mix of fear and excitement swirling inside me. My eyes were locked on the track ahead. The higher we climbed, the smaller the park below seemed, and then without warning, we were flying. The first drop felt like falling off a cliff. I screamed louder than I ever had before, the wind snatching the breath from my lungs. The car whipped around curves and shot through loops, and my hands gripped the bar tighter and tighter. But by the time we reached the end, I was grinning from ear to ear. The adrenaline coursed through my veins like electricity, and I couldn't wait to do it again. "Let's go again," Kevin shouted as we stumbled off the ride, still shaking from the thrill. Without hesitation, we got back in line. This time, I was determined to ride with my hands in the air to fully embrace the experience. As the car climbed the hill again, I raised my arms, feeling the wind rush past me as we shot down the drop. It was even better the second time around. The freedom of letting go made the ride feel so much more exhilarating. For the next few hours, Kevin and I crisscrossed the park, hopping from one coaster to the next. We tackled the Viper, Batman, the Ride, and Superman, Ultimate Flight. Each ride left me more exhilarated than the last. The heat of the summer sun beat down on us, but I hardly noticed. We were living in the moment, completely swept up in the thrill of the rides and the joy of being young and carefree. But as the day wore on, I started to feel the effects of the heat and the constant motion. After our second ride on the Raging Bull, a wave of dizziness washed over me. At first, I thought I could shake it off. I didn't want anything to ruin this day, not when I was finally having so much fun. But then the nausea hit, and I knew I needed a break. "Hey, Kev," I said, trying to sound casual even though my stomach was doing flips. "I think I need to sit down for a minute." Kevin glanced at me, his brow furrowed with concern. "You okay?" "Yeah, just a little dizzy. I'll be fine." He nodded, though I could tell he was worried. "We can take a break. No problem." We found a bench near the entrance to the Raging Bull, and I sank onto it, grateful for the chance to sit still for a moment. Kevin, always the more adventurous one, looked at me with a grin. "You mind if I go one more time while you rest?" I shook my head, forcing a smile. "Go ahead. I'll be fine here." He gave me a thumbs up and disappeared back into the line. I leaned back on the bench, closing my eyes for a moment, trying to steady myself. The sounds of the park swirled around me, the distant screams of riders, the hum of conversations, the clink of carnival games. I opened my eyes and watched as families and groups of friends moved through the park, laughing, eating cotton candy, and darting from ride to ride. It was a picture of summer fun, but I couldn't shake the queasy feeling in my stomach. As I sat there, trying to recover, I heard a voice close by. "Hello." At first, I thought it was someone talking to another person nearby, so I didn't look up. But then I heard it again, this time more insistent. "Hello." I turned my head and saw a woman standing just a few feet away. She looked to be in her mid-30s, with long brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore jeans and a casual t-shirt, nothing out of the ordinary. But something about her struck me as odd right away. Maybe it was the way she was standing, or maybe it was the look on her face, but I felt a strange sense of unease. "Hi there," she said, a smile on her lips, but her eyes looked serious. "Are you okay?" "Yeah, just feeling a bit dizzy," I replied, trying to sound nonchalant. "I'm just taking a break." "Long day at the park?" she asked, stepping a little closer. "Yeah, we've been riding a lot," I said, glancing back toward the roller coasters. "I think I might have overdone it." She nodded, as if she understood. "It can get overwhelming, can't it? The rides, the heat." "Yeah," I said, still feeling a bit uneasy. There was something off about her tone, but I couldn't put my finger on it. "I'm just trying to rest for a bit." "Good idea," she replied, her smile still plastered on her face. "It's important to take care of yourself. You wouldn't want to miss out on the fun because of a little dizziness." "Exactly," I said, forcing a smile back. I felt an urge to stand up and move away, but something kept me rooted to the bench. My friend is riding the raging bull again. Ah, the raging bull, she said, her eyes lighting up. That's a great one. How many times have you been on it today? Just twice so far, I said, feeling a little more comfortable. I really love it. Good for you, she said, clapping her hands together. You're brave to take it on. Not everyone can handle the thrill of the drops and loops. As she spoke, I noticed something strange about her eyes. They seemed to glimmer in a way that made me feel a little uneasy again. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her than met the eye. Just then, Kevin returned, his face flushed with excitement. I'm back. You won't believe how awesome it was. The woman turned to him with the same big smile. Is this your friend? Yeah, this is Kevin, I said, relieved to have him back. He just rode the raging bull again. Kevin grinned at her. Hey, did you ride too? No, I'm just keeping an eye on this one, she said, gesturing toward me with a playful wink. She's taking a little break. Kevin looked back at me, raising an eyebrow. You feeling better? Getting there, I replied, feeling more at ease with him around. Good. We should head over to the log flume next. It's supposed to be a blast, Kevin said, bouncing on his feet with excitement. Sounds fun, I agreed, relieved to have something else to focus on. Are you joining them? The woman asked, her eyes narrowing slightly as she studied us. Yeah, we're going to check it out, I said, feeling a little uncomfortable again. Be careful, she said, her voice low and oddly serious. Stay close to each other, okay? It can get a bit wild in there. Sure, Kevin said, glancing at me. Okay, I said, trying to sound brave. We will. Good, she replied, her smile returning. Have fun, kids. We waved goodbye as we walked away, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me as we moved farther away from her. What was that all about? Kevin asked, raising an eyebrow. I don't know, I said, glancing back at the woman. She was just odd. Yeah, kind of weird, Kevin said, shaking his head. But let's forget about that. We've got rides to conquer. The rest of the day flew by in a blur of laughter, screams, and water splashes. We rode the log flume, got soaked, and then tried a few more coasters. Each ride felt better than the last, and I finally shook off that uneasy feeling. We made memories, took photos, and soaked in every moment of summer freedom. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in vibrant hues of orange and pink, we made our way back toward the entrance, our hearts still racing from the day's adventures. I turned to Kevin and said, "Today was amazing." It really was. I can't believe we finally rode the raging bull, he replied, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Best day ever, I said, feeling like I could conquer anything. But as we walked, I couldn't help but glance back at the park one last time. The rides were still buzzing with energy, and I could hear the laughter of families and the screams of joy. For a brief moment, I thought I saw the woman standing at the entrance, watching us, but then she vanished into the crowd. Shaking off the strange feeling, I turned to Kevin and said, "Let's do this again next summer." "Absolutely," he replied, grinning from ear to ear. As we hopped on the bus, I felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The day had been everything I had hoped for and more. I knew that summer of 2008 would be one I'd never forget, not just for the rides, but for the friendship and fun that made it truly special. "Hi," I said cautiously, not sure what else to do. She smiled, but the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "What's your name?" The question caught me off guard. Why would a stranger ask me that? It didn't seem like something a random person would ask at an amusement park. I hesitated for a moment, but then, not wanting to seem rude, I told her. "That's a lovely name," she said, her smile widening. "Are you here alone?" Her question made my stomach twist even more. There was something off about her, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. I shook my head quickly. "No, my friend's on the ride." She nodded slowly, as if she was processing this information. "Oh, that's nice. Do you want to ride the Raging Bull with me?" Her words sent a chill down my spine. Why would this woman, who I had never met before, want to ride a roller coaster with me? I didn't know what to say at first. It was such an odd question, so out of place. Something about the way she asked it, the tone in her voice, made me feel deeply uncomfortable. "I'm not feeling well," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm just waiting for my friend." Her smile faltered for just a second, but then it returned, even brighter than before. "Oh, that's too bad," she said, her voice almost sing-songy. "Maybe later?" I nodded quickly, hoping she would take the hint and leave me alone. But instead of walking away, she sat down on the bench next to me. My heart started to race. I glanced around, hoping to see Kevin coming out of the ride, but he was still nowhere in sight. The woman started talking again, asking me about the park, if I had been on any other rides, and whether I had any siblings. I answered her questions as briefly as possible, keeping my eyes on the crowd, hoping someone would notice the odd situation, but no one seemed to pay any attention. After a few minutes, she leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "You know," she said, almost whispering, "I've been coming to this park for years, and I know a secret spot where you can see the whole park from above. It's really cool. Want to see it?" Her words made my skin crawl. The way she was looking at me, the way her voice sounded, it wasn't right. My instincts were screaming at me to get away from her as fast as possible. "No, thanks," I said, standing up quickly. "I'm just going to wait for my friend." Her smile vanished completely, and for a moment, her expression turned cold, almost angry. But then, just as quickly, she forced the smile back onto her face and stood up too, brushing off her jeans. "Well," she said, her voice light again, "if you change your mind, I'll be around." She gave me a wink and then walked away, disappearing into the crowd. I sat back down, my legs shaking. What had just happened? I felt a wave of relief wash over me as I watched her walk away, but the uneasy feeling lingered. I had no idea what her intentions had been, but I knew one thing for sure: I was glad I hadn't followed her. A few minutes later, Kevin came bounding out of the line, grinning ear to ear. "That was awesome. You missed out, dude." I gave him a shaky smile. "Yeah, I'm good." As we walked away from the Raging Bull, I told him about the woman. He shrugged, not seeming too bothered. "She was probably just being friendly," he said, brushing it off. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something more sinister had been at play. The rest of the day, I kept my eyes peeled for her, but I didn't see her again. Still, the encounter stayed with me, casting a shadow over what should have been a perfect day. Looking back, I realize how lucky I was to trust my instincts that day. It's easy to ignore that little voice in your head, but sometimes it's the only thing keeping you safe. I never found out who that woman was or what her true intentions were, but I'm grateful I didn't stick around to find out.